Welcome to another edition of Divorce Today on DadsDivorce.com. Today we're going to be talking with Michael Shimberg. He's the author of, or co-author of the Complete Single Father, and it's a bit of a guidebook to written to help single dads make the transition into their new role and lifestyle. Michael Shimberg is a single father of a son and daughter, and he's based in the Tampa, Florida area. So, Michael, thanks for joining us today.
You bet, Stephanie. Thanks for being here.
So just let me get started. And why did you decide to write this book? What provoked you?
Well, it was one of those things that I had just gone through my own divorce, and throughout the process, I tend to be a bit of a reader and trying to figure out, things. And there wasn't a whole lot of books out there that really involved specific issues with dad. There was a lot of stuff about moms out there, but nothing really that dealt specifically on the dad part of you. And my mom, who is a writer of over 20 books, came to me and said, is this something maybe we could do together? And so the project was born from there.
And so you said your mom actually worked with you on this book. So how did that work out? Did you have a very close relationship with your mom, and she helped you kind of through the transition herself, or how did that work?
I mean, we've always been a close family. I'm one of 5 children, but it was certainly there were some interesting times, kind of in the writing process where you're kind of going into different subjects that isn't always overly comfortable to be talking to your mom about, but it worked well through the process.
Okay.
And one of the things we also, I think, really wanted to make a point through this book was that we didn't want it to be a ex-bashing book. A lot of the ones on the market, especially on the women's side, are really kind of bashing the ex. And frankly, when it comes to the children, which is ultimately the most important aspect after the divorce, it's not helpful. And so we really try to make it more of a positive book versus some sort of negative what to do, now.
Okay. And talking a little bit more about the advice you offer in the book, one of the most important things, with having children is getting along with your ex after the fact with visitations and everything. So what was your advice, or what is your advice to single fathers out there trying to get along with their exes?
It's one of those things that it's certainly not easy all the time. It really depends on kind of a lot of factors of what was the underlying causes for the divorce. Some divorces end up still amicable after. Some have a little more hostility at the end. What we really try to convey is that you've got to make it all about your children. And a lot of the times in making it all about your children, you have to essentially get over whatever happened that caused the divorce. And, a lot of times people say, well, that's easier said than done. But if you look back and say, you know what, there's really nothing more important than my children getting through this successfully, you can really put a lot of your problems aside. And when you look at the stats out there, the chances of a child of a divorced parent being divorced themselves is astronomically higher than a non-divorced child. And so if you just think already you've basically lined the probabilities up against them, so anything you can do to help that process, and most of the times the reason those averages are so high is because they see such a dysfunctional relationship between their parents. And that's really a lot of times because somebody's still angry. And, you either really have one of two choices. You can either be angry the rest of your life, and that's going to affect every relationship you have going forward with both your children and any future relationship, or you can say, what happened, and now I'm going to make sure that I get on with my life and keep my children as positive as possible on theirs.
Okay. And one of the first things that has to be done after, moving out of the marital home is setting up your own home and trying to make a home for your children when they have their visitation. And how do you think is the best way to go about doing that?
Well, that's one of those things that, especially when it comes to the father end of things, we write a lot about it in the book, and it's important that the home needs to be a home, not just for you as the father and as the man, but it needs to be a home for the children. And I think too often when men get divorced, they kind of go out and they establish their bachelor pad, and they say, okay, I've been married for X amount of years. Now I want to have that perfect pad that I can just really get back to the basics. And you need to remember, especially depending on what custody you have with your children, they need to have a home there too. They need to have space for themselves. Whether you can afford to have separate rooms for them or not isn't the important part. It's that you really make sure that whatever you do have, that you established them having input into it. So, for example, how are you going to decorate it? What are you going to do to make sure that they have their spots to be able to do homework, to make sure that they have kind of personal areas, and not making it all about yourself, essentially. And then expanding on there, just little things that I think sometimes as men we don't really think about, and making it